recently traveled to Atlanta, Georgia. We were there to do a tribute to Jerry Lewis. It was wonderful. And after the tribute, Jerry and I talked. We talked about the movies, we talked about the industry, we talked about his work, we talked about the whole creative process. And we taped that interview. We thought you might like to get to know this man a little bit better. Maybe see a side of Jerry Lewis that would surprise you. He's been a good friend of mine for many years. He never fails to surprise me. When you and Dean Martin broke up, this seems like ancient history now. It seems like a past chapter. At that point, you described it as one of the low points in your life with a terrible sense of apprehension.
Well, I wasn't sure how the public would take me alone. I knew Dean was going to be test pilot for Seagram's, and I didn't know for sure. I wasn't certain how they would take me, and I was frightened and didn't know what was the first move. How did I go about finding this out? Within my fear, I always had the kind of courage to at least go forward and find out, is that fear there and what am I afraid of? But I didn't know how to go about that. And I was in Las Vegas and just vacationing. And Judy Garland was playing the Frontier Hotel. Judy got sick, had a very, very bad strep throat. And her husband at the time, Sid Luft, called me, knowing I was at the Sands Hotel just vacationing, said, "Jerry, would you go on for Judy tonight? There's standing room only. There's 2,000 people in this theater. There's no one in town. Would you do it?" I said, "Would I do what? Want me to sing Somewhere Over the Rainbow? What are you, crazy?" I said, "I have no clothes. I borrowed black socks from a bell captain to make the black trousers I had match the gray. Whatever I put together, I went there. And I walked on stage, and the laughs came from when I said to the people, I have no idea what I'm doing here without another human standing next to me. And they knew what I was talking about. And for about 65 minutes, it was probably the best performance I've ever given as a comedian. But I didn't know how to get off. I said, "What does Judy do when she finishes? What's the last thing?" And the conductor said, "She does Rockabye Baby." I said, "Well, you play the arrangement. I know the lyrics. I'll sing it." I did it, and I had a standing ovulation. I then went into a recording studio about a week later and recorded Rockabye. And to date, it sold maybe 4 or 5 million copies, I guess. But I knew that night that all you had to do was stand in one and say to the people, "I'm here because I'm a show-off." I knew it all that night. That night, I knew what I had been doing for those many years before.
As you talk about that, of going out and just showing off,
that's what all performers do. I don't want to sit among the masses. I don't want to be one of 200 drummers. I want the baton. The only thing that goes with that is the responsibility that it carries. If you don't mind that, take the baton.
Your folks were entertainers. And the paradox that came through to me reading the material, including your own book, is that for someone who's made so many people laugh for so many years, that in your own childhood there wasn't an awful lot of laughter. And there's this one lady who comes kind of shining through. This was your grandmother, Grandma Sarah.
Yeah. Well, to describe my grandmother, I would have to tell you, take the greatest woman that ever lived, put her with Golda Meir, mix that combination, and you would have my grandmother. She had the wisdom of the apostles. She had the common sense and the streetwise know-it-all to tell me the following: "Jerry, you're having a love affair with humanity. but don't get too upset when you find out how fickle they are. I was 10 when she told me that. I'm 64, so I'm talking about 54 years ago.
Yeah. But she had your number early, didn't she?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. She knew that I was looking for love by giving laughter through my nonsense. She also knew that my nonsense wasn't what the rest of the family looked at. The rest of the family felt I needed a keeper. And there was some of the family making private calls to little homes where they put children. She saw something, and she said in her own way, stay with it, because you're wiser than those that are scorning you. And she was speaking of her daughters, all of her children, who were then married, of course, my aunts and my uncles, who I ultimately lived with because my parents were always on the road. And what she was saying to me was, don't listen to them and don't let them diminish what you want to do. You want to make people laugh. If you get something from that, do it. If you want to make people laugh for them to get something from it, don't do that. Let them get it and you get it.
It's a sad story. You said she never lived to see it. And as a matter of fact, she passed away shortly after that exchange that she had with you when you were 10, I think.
But then everything that she taught me flashed before me. I really decided I had to have the baton. And I lost my best friend.
Into the ice, I bid you welcome.
Bela Lugosi in his legendary role, the classic horror movie that chilled the world. Dracula, premiering Saturday, January 26th at 3 p.m. and 10 p.m. Eastern on American Movie Classics.
One of the things I come across constantly, and things that you've talked to me about, is a sense of fear. A fear of not pleasing the audience, a fear of not giving us our money's worth, a fear of being less than perfect in the work, a fear of delivering one element that's not quite up to the level of excellence of the other element.
Any part of the creative process has to have fear. If you have no fear, then you write with an abandon and you don't care. I think that you have to have fear, you have to have confidence, you have to be a little cocky, not so humble, and plenty of humble. And you have to have all of that mix to make up the creative process.
I've read several stories over the past couple of weeks as I've been doing research for this, and one of them involves the film Cinderfella. A man named Barney Balaban was the head of Paramount Pictures, and he said, this is going to be great, it's going to be Paramount's big summer film, and you said, no, Barney, this is a Christmas movie.
Right.
Oh, I worked very to my bones, Finger. I'm glad you liked my meat prime.
I can't, oh, thank you. Oh, Mother, for enjoying my prime meat of ribs. I'm so grateful to you all.
Fella?
Yes?
Tomorrow I may take you to play polo with me.
Polo? Me polo? The gentleman's game. Oh, thank you, Maxim.
Yes, and maybe you'd like to play some tennis and golf with us.
Oh, what wonderful brothers. Two swell persons to have as my own, my brother's own, and mother and brothers and all.
Fella, The brandy, please.
Oh, yes, Mother. Excuse me.
To love the prime meat and ribs. It's a one. I'm so glad that I'll hope we'll always have more of it.
He said, we always release 2 Jerry Lewis pictures. We don't have anything else. And you said to him on the spot, oh, yes, you do. I've got a film for you. And you made up the film right there.
Yeah, I told him I had something when I didn't. I said, if you preserve Cinderella for the Christmas release, I'll write you a film for the summer. He said, this is February the 1st. It took me 8 days to write a 165-page screenplay, The Bellboy. I delivered it to Balaban and Paramount April the 23rd. Delivered an answer print, having shot it from February 20th to March 10th or March 15th. I opened at the Sands in Las Vegas. I cut it backstage in between shows, and it was a summer release. Paramount was afraid, because I was doing a mime film, to put up any money, so I put up my own money. To date, the film has grossed about $100 million, and Paramount sends me these little notes. We'll get you for that.
We'll have a boy up there right away. Yes, sir, thank you. Front boy. 877, Mr. Wheel, pick up.
What at this point gives you the most satisfaction? What do you get the most pleasure out of all the things that you're doing right now in your life?
If you weren't here and I was directing here, that would be the love at that moment. Last night I performed in Detroit, and to face that audience and to hear them respond, that was my satisfaction. When I conducted the Cleveland Symphony, that moment was the moment. When I lectured at Purdue University and I had 2,000 students as quiet as this audience, and I was talking about the full spectrum of life, that was the most satisfying. So it's like the song, I love the girl I'm near. I love what I'm doing most when I'm doing it. But if you asked me to pick, that would be like asking me, which of your 6 sons, if you had to give up 5, would you keep? There are no answers to that.
And now, a Hollywood Minute from the pages of American Movie Classics magazine. A look at Charlie Chaplin, the cinema's quintessential comic genius. Charles Chaplin's films continue to delight audiences around the world with his impeccable comedic timing, his masterful imagination, and his unlimited resourcefulness. His most famous character, the Little Tramp, was simply created from some unused props. Mr. Chaplin's full creative control on his films as writer, actor, composer, and director enabled him to freely use his talent for combining sympathy with humor, creating some of the most memorable moments in film history. Look for Charlie Chaplin in January on AMC. And for more information on the stars, write for American Movie Classics magazine. Send $11.95 to P.O. Box 2065, Marion, Ohio 43305. Or call 1-800-535-7700 to order with your Visa or MasterCard. American Movie Classics magazine, the magazine of classic Hollywood.
When you look at this body of work, these 40 years, and you look at all that you accomplished, is there one particular project that for you embodies what you wanted to do? Which one is that?
I took all of the information that I was able to examine, and watch throughout my life, and put it all in the script when I wrote The Nutty Professor. Everything that I had seen and observed, particularly writing Buddy Love, the character Buddy Love, who for me he was the epitome of all the bad things in the world. There's pieces of Hess, Himmler, Tito, Franco, gangsters in New York, child abusers, name it. Every ugly thing that I knew about man and the human condition, I wrote in this character. Then I panicked when I wondered, how do I know this? How do I know all of these things?
Yeah.
So all of that has to be a part of all of us. But I knew that when Buddy Love said to him, move it, class is in the way, and all of those terrible things I had him doing, how did I know that? To the degree that I had to go to one of the best psychiatrists in Beverly Hills, who was 25th in the line of 109 on the same street. And I said, is this going to be a problem for me, in that I recognize I know about this because I have parts of that in me? He said, the fact that you came here to ask tells me you're healthy. Don't worry about it. Finish your script.
What'll it be?
Aw, that's no way to talk. What'll it be? That's no way to treat a customer. Come here, try it like this. Pay attention, you'll feel better and the customers will be happier. Try this. What'll it be? Try that. Come on, we haven't got all night. Try it.
What'll it be?
Good, that was wonderful. Did anyone ever tell you you couldn't sing? Nice. Make me an Alaskan polar bear heater on a double. Come on, come on.
Say, why don't you pick on somebody your own disposition?
Oh, please, Mr. Barroom Brawler. Don't hurt me or anything like that.
And you went through a transition in your work. You started out as an actor, you started working as in a partner team with Dean Martin, and gradually you took over the creative process in terms of directing, first producing, directing, writing it. How does it feel when you go back into the situation of being what is in effect, I guess, a hired hand, even for somebody good like Scorsese?
Any good director has to be what he expects of an actor when he is the actor. And working with Scorsese was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I came to find out after the 5 or 6 talks that De Niro and Marty and I had about doing the film, that they were both fans, but to the degree that it was fanatic. De Niro ran every film I ever made 6 or 7 times to check me out, when indeed none of that work would have anything to do with the role I was going to play in King of Comedy. Now I've got the 2 big fans on the set, and they're in a corner all the time, talking to one another. And I said, could we stop with the Secret Service meetings? What are you guys talking about? Well, the interesting thing is that they work together so well. They had to work by letting me in, and I had to succumb to that approach to filmmaking, and it worked.
Why didn't you just listen to the tape when I asked you to? Was that so hard to do?
I'm sure you can understand doing the kind of show I'm doing. It's mind-boggling. There's so much stuff that comes down, you can't keep your head clear. And if that's the case, I'm wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I apologize. I'm just a human being with all of the foibles and all of the traps, the show, the pressure, the groupies, the autograph hounds, the crew, the incompetence, those behind the scenes you think are your friends and you're not too sure if you're going to be there tomorrow because of their incompetence. They're wonderful pressures that make every day a glowing, radiant day in your life. It's terrific. Okay, If all of that means nothing, if I'm wrong, in spite of all of that, then I apologize. I'm sorry.
Not to bring up a sad note, but you and I were talking before, and we were talking about just the ups and downs of life. And I know that this was a very sad week for you because you lost one of the best friends you've ever had. And I told you the story about how I had seen Sammy Davis Jr. for the first time. And what an extraordinary talent. And I was a little kid. But the thing that he did that everybody talked about, as you know, was the Jerry Lewis imitation.
He had 60 years on the stage. And I think that the monument that must be placed one day for that man is the monument that will read, "He opened the door for the black performer." And without knowing it, he opened the door for a minority group in other areas as well. He was the most loving, most giving, most in need of love great performer that ever lived, the singularly most faceted performer that ever performed on the stage. And although he always looked to me or Frank, he would tell audiences when we worked together, his two idols were Frank Sinatra and Jerry Lewis. Frank for the way he phrased lyrics for singing, and for when he needed comedy, he would think of me. So he did have those two idols, and he made no bones about that. But what he brought to the world, he didn't know about. There are so many of us in this business that really don't know the core of what we are. We guess, and in some cases we wish. There aren't enough that will make those admissions, but they're true. We really don't know how good we are. We are the most insecure of all the art forms. I don't think Picasso worried about someone knocking at his door. I think he knew what he did was great, and that was that. Van Gogh had a hearing problem, but I think he also knew he was great. But when you're dealing with the fragile aspect of walking live in front of an audience, it carries with it a very, very heavy emotional load. And although Sammy had family, children, grandchildren, he did it all, from dope to alcohol, fighting the civil rights syndrome, hugging Nixon at the wrong time. With it all, if you took it all away from him, place him right there in front of this audience, and you would see in the one eye that he had left the kind of glory that every man dreams to have maybe once in his life. I watched it every night that we performed together. When he stood on that stage, he made it look like he was giving of himself for all of them, when indeed he was taking from all of them everything he needed. And he was only satisfied and happiest when he stood there. He was 5'3". He weighed 111 pounds. And at one point of the show, I would pick him up and hold him in my arm.
Like
and he would do this with his body, and I say, "I want to thank the NAACP for this award."